This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Sean Preston.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on with us, and that is Justin Mcintyre of Jmmortgages.com. What's going on, Justin?
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Just another day in paradise, my friend.
Love it. Yeah, we were just talking about that paradise right before we hopped on the show. So lots of fun and games. We'll spare the audience from that. But just really curious. I'm looking back at that Eagles logo. Are you an NFL fan?
I'm an Eagles fan. I fell in love with the Eagles way back with the original Xbox, ESPN 2K5.
Nice.
I ended up getting for cheap at my local video game store and randomized them because I didn't follow it at the time, and landed on the Eagles, and they became my team ever since.
It's cool how, you think from these big clubs and how it's such a big league, they try to market their teams and acquire a fan base. And sometimes it's as simple as picking up a fan through a video game. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. And it was just a random game. I think it was like $6 on the clearance rack. I was like, yeah, why not? I was on my system, so I needed new games, right? And yeah, it just took off from there. And then during the Super Bowl, I dabbled in some 3D printing with my new printer and played around with it a bit. And then I got my thing over there that a client sent me for helping her and her parents out over the years.
Nice. Very cool. Well, we'll definitely get into that a little bit more a little later in the show. But for now, I'm sure our audience listeners are chomping at the bit. So why don't we dive into it? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your business?
So I like to look at it as I help people get into the biggest debt of their lives. Essentially, that's what I'm doing. I'm providing that service to take on the largest amount of money that you'll ever borrow in your life and give you the strategies and knowledge to pay it off as quick as possible if you so choose.
Very simple way to put it. Simplicity is king, especially in today's day and age where everything is so complicated. But mortgages are self-explanatory. I think for most people that they end up owning a home, renting a home. Obviously, it's very different from that. But maybe there is a listener that's not haven't purchased their first home yet, and maybe walk us through a little bit more into detail. Go beneath the surface level.
So I'm here to hold hands as much as possible. I've worked with clients for upwards of 2 years before they were in a situation to either purchase or refinance, depending on their situation. I've taken clients from renting, coming up with a budget and strategies to get the down payments in, get credit in line, get the income that they require to get them into their first home. And essentially that's what I do. I am a hand holder. I will be here to answer all the questions from start to finish, even after funding. And that's kind of where I try to set myself apart. I have a lot of knowledge up here that my wife can only listen to me get out so much in a day before her eyes gloss over and she tunes me out.
Yeah.
So when people ask me questions and want to have conversations and start asking the more intricate things, then that's kind of where, I get excited because it can be very bland and boring at times.
Yeah. And there's different strategies. Like, we started partnering with mortgages and helping them create content, educational content. You start to learn some things, and it's not just like, hey, I'm going to, buy my second home, or I'm going to get into my first home. Like there's equity builds up in a home. There's different strategies depending on where you are financially to, move the needle, make an investment, whether you're downsizing, upsizing. And I don't know if it's talked enough in the marketplace with how somebody can leverage a mortgage broker when, they're going through different stages in life, right?
No, for sure. And that's why there's so many different things. There's purchase plus improvements, there's flex downs, there's no down payment, where actually Simcoe County will give renters down payment to buy a home, right? So there's a lot of things that people don't really know about. People think you go to your bank and you get a mortgage and that's it. Well, a lot of them don't really go into the deeper stuff And then when you get into the more advanced, you get your power of your paycheck, where you can pay your mortgage off, shave off anywhere between, depending on the situation, 10 to 15 years, saving thousands and thousands of dollars in interest, right? So that's where someone like me kind of takes you through the whole process and figures out what's best for the client, given their situation and their future plans. Because it's not just about what's going on now. It's, are you planning to move up, move down? Is this a stepping stone for 3 years? Are you going to be here for the long term? All that sort of stuff comes into play when I talk to clients.
Yeah, that's even more of an important note, that, to have regular check-ins, like at least once a year, once every 6 months, with your mortgage broker, to be like, hey, let's get a pulse on where you're at. How's your life? How are your goals? This is what we talked about last time. Like, those are all important things, because you never know. If the knowledge that you have in your head, next thing you know, it's like, hey, the light bulb just went on. I've got a strategy. Have you ever thought about this? Right. And then, that could significantly impact someone's life or help them get ahead in life.
Oh, for sure. One thing that, I've utilized in the past to help people get into that house is even a cashback mortgage, where lenders will give you a certain percentage of the mortgage back. So you can use that to pay off your debts or closing costs and stuff like that. Whereas they might just have enough to get into the home, but in order to get into the home, you have to pay off some debts. So you're kind of doing a refinance at the time of a purchase. Whereas you walk into your big banks and they don't have that access.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's always unique talking to different business owners in our local market, because life is never truly linear and everybody has their own unique story. So what was your story like leading into doing what you're doing today?
So I came from the corporate accounting world, and my wife and I were purchasing a cottage property, and we were dealing with a mortgage broker at the time, and they dropped the ball, to be quite honest. We were the day before a condition of financing, hadn't heard anything. Emails were being ignored, calls were being ignored, nothing was being returned. And finally, I had no choice. I had to go above them. I found the underwriter from the lender phone number, called them directly, and that lit a fire under their ass. And yeah, we got it, ended up getting it done. So as I was in the corporate world, I realized that I'm not happy there. I don't like the same old nonsense, going and sitting at a cubicle. And to be quite honest, my boss was a bit of an ass, right? He was miserable. He didn't talk to anybody in the office. He was always in a bad mood. And I just thought, that's not something that I'm aspiring to be. So a family friend of mine, she always mentioned mortgages. I started looking into it more, signed up for the course, and started doing kind of both. And then slowly mortgages kind of took over more, and it was kind of clear where I was going.
Where's your passion come from? I talk to a lot of business owners on the podcast, and everybody's super passionate about what they do. I can already tell the lifestyle it gives, right? You were talking about not being happy. I was up and down the corporate ladder too, and seeing, the future where that lies, not happy with that either. And so for very similar reasons to you, I decided I wanted to as well. A little bit of history on me. I've bullied a lot in my early life, in elementary school, high school, into the workforce. So another motivating factor for me. But what fills your cup, man? What do you love about what you do so much?
Not to sound so boring and cliche, but just helping people. Like it's amazing when, like, one of my very first reviews actually from the client that sent me that the Eagles warmer there. I worked with her for almost 2 years, and her review was that I was brutally honest with her, and that's what she needed. And that's how I am. I'll tell you straight up whether there's something to be done here or not, and where you're going wrong. And just having her be so happy about it and give me that nice review. And then obviously the relationship kind of went from there. We connected on a football level and all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of where that came in.
Yeah.
So it's just, and then, you get to know people, like, people are being very vulnerable with you. You're letting them into I'm going into their finances. And that's something that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody's comfortable talking about finances and credit, right? Everyone wants to kind of just think that it's going to work itself out. And that's not the way it works, contrary to what our ex-prime minister would say about the budget, right?
Yeah.
And, and I've actually formed friendships with clients that we've shared similar likes with. And it's just kind of those things that keeps me going. And obviously, yeah, the lifestyle that comes with it, but it's not all rainbows and butterflies like people think being self-employed, as I'm sure you can attest to. You're always on call. You're never really on vacations. I'm home with my son today and he keeps asking me to play. And I'm like, no, sorry, I can't right now. I got to get this in because I got to get ready for this and do this. And it's hard saying no so much, but then you just kind of have to find the time to be able to disconnect, and as hard as it is.
Yeah, eventually the business scales, you get the time back, but for sure there's a grind period at the start, and at some similarities again from what you're saying. I have some similarities in terms of how I got in as well, and the time that you put in before, and we're working up that grind and the whole bit. So that's pretty cool from that standpoint. I took a test, right? You said you like to help people. That's where the similarity is. Very much the same with me. And it wasn't like, I have to take this test because I was applying for my first real big boy job as an inside sales rep for a company when I was 23 years old. And so I went through this very rigorous test, and one of the big things that came back was that I like to help people. So it came back pretty positive. I always remembered that from the test, but very similar to you in that regard. When you're able to help out another human being, I don't know, the dopamine hit on my side of the fence is pretty big. So that's why I keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. And, it's not only the recognition from clients, but my old brokerage. I don't know if you can see them up on that shelf there. There's a couple awards. The blue one, they came up with a mentorship program to newer agents in the office, and they handpicked 5 or 6 of us to be mentors to those young agents. And I actually won a mentor of the year.
Nice.
The first year that they brought it in, and it just continued on. But it's one of those things where, yeah, like I said, I have a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of stuff that I need to kind of get out on a daily basis, and that's a means for me to do it.
Love it. We always like to have a conversation about myths and misconceptions out there, right? Because knowledge is power, and you just don't know what you don't know. So whether that's something through word of mouth, or maybe you go down a rabbit hole on the internet, you read something that's not necessarily factual, or you're forming your own opinions, and that wasn't given by expert advice, then people can develop their own thoughts, which then in turn can paint a picture on an industry or on a business or on an individual. So we always like to let the business clear the air a little bit by sharing with our listeners maybe a myth or misconception that exists out in the mortgage world.
Mortgages are a lot different than when your dad and your mom and your grandparents got their mortgage 50 years ago. And people always seem to gravitate to their parents' advice and stuff like that. But sometimes parents don't know best. And I'm not trying to take away from parenting advice, because I'm a father of 2, and I know my advice is going to kind of go in one ear and out the other some days. It does most days, actually. But mortgages have changed a lot over the years, and they're as difficult or as simple as you want them to be. You can do something that's just very cookie cutter, run of the mill. You have your down payment, you have your purchase price, you have your income, away you go. Or you can get into the advanced strategies where you get into rental cash damming for investors, or power of the paycheck to pay it off sooner and stuff like that. But yeah, obviously not every mortgage is the same or is right for everybody. Someone who has a short-term plan using a house as a stepping stone doesn't need a 5-year fix. The penalty on that is going to be astronomical if they break it in 2 years, potentially, right? So those are all things that we kind of have to take in mind. And the bank doesn't always have your best interest at heart. And they show that because of all these penalties and extra fees that they put on.
Yeah, and front loading the interest first, which when I first bought my house, the one I'm in right now, taking a look at it for a second time when I was refinancing and realizing how little that I ended up paying off, and then getting educated on it. It's they front load all the interest first, and now I'm looking to do it all over again. So I'm sure they're probably pretty happy. They're getting their interest the way that they want to. But yeah, that was something I didn't know.
And also, just to add to that, is brokers are regulated a lot different than your bank person. So if you walk into your local branch and you talk to your mortgage specialist. They're not, most likely, I'd say 90% of the time, they're not licensed. So they're not regulated by FSRA like we are. We have to do continuing education. We have to meet certain standards. And we also have to do extra paperwork after the commitments and all that. Whereas the bank branch, they can sit down with, talk to you about your mortgage, and then they can turn around and talk to someone about their TFSAs. They're kind of a jack of all trades. Not all of them, obviously, but majority of them are. And a lot of them won't be there in 2-3 years when you call them up and ask them questions.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
That's usually the complaint that I get, is their turnaround time and the fact that they never have the same person dealing with their file.
Yeah. You walk into the bank. If you're walking into the same bank, it's just over time you start to see new faces in there. It's not always that that same person who's in there. All right, let's talk about outside of work, because when we're business owners, we're, like I was saying before, being passionate about what we do. It's easy to dump in extra time. It's different than just doing a 9 to 5 and somebody else's responsibility. There's a lot more that goes into it when you're a business owner. And so therefore, you can work 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And sometimes we don't mind it because it's our baby. We love it, that type of thing. But there is a harmony. I call it a harmony, not a balance. A balance means everything equal. We don't play as much as we work. It's the opposite, right? But there is a harmony between it and in building something and something that's going to help you with your goals and your lifestyles and give you what you want in life. But at the same time, then there's the life part, which we all want to play and we all want to do. We all want to do very well for the most part. So when you're not working on or in your business, what does Justin like to do for fun?
Well, I have 2 kids that keep us busy, 5 and a 3-year-old.
Nice.
So they're getting into their own activities, dance and gymnastics, and swimming lessons and skating lessons and soccer and floor hockey and all that sort of stuff. So kind of in between that, obviously sports, as you pointed out, the Eagles stuff, Leafs, obviously just by default. I will clear that up. I will clear it up. It's by default because everyone wants the home team to win, but I am a Penguins fan.
Nice.
I fell in love with them when Lemieux came out of retirement way back.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Bankruptcy, and he signed over his paychecks, and I was just at the stage in my life where I kind of was like, oh, you know what, that's respectable. And since then, they just kind of became my team. They built a powerhouse, so it kind of made it easy to like them.
Yeah.
Blue Jays, I grew up playing baseball from a young age. I started when I was 3, played at a very high level. I just wrapped up my 2nd season back playing co-ed softball after a 20-year hiatus. So
nice.
That's been interesting. I actually got suckered into being the captain of the team, which, yeah. So don't ask me. So not only that, I'm now the captain of a team that we play once a week, so it's not too bad. But you still have to figure out the roster and positionings and all that when people are calling in sick and subs and all that. And then I'm sure you've noticed also the car stuff behind me. I'm wrapping up a 10-year restoration. I say 10-year, but it's really actual working on it, maybe 6. Restoration of a 66 Mustang.
Oh yeah, nice.
So that's I was hoping to take it on a test drive this week, but the fuel pump decided to have a major leak, so we're just waiting to get that ironed out, and hopefully it'll be up and down the road a little bit.
Where did you acquire the skill set to work on cars? Is that just kind of a fancy you had and YouTube videos and self-taught?
So once I got my first car, which was a 1989 Ford Probe, just in case you were wondering, I learned because my dad would teach me. So like we needed to do brakes, he taught me how to do brakes and just small jobs here and there, maintenance stuff, just to save some money and get to learning how to do it. Shortly after I married my wife, my father-in-law, who is not a Ford fan, was showing me all these Mustangs, and he eventually told me that his plan was to get a cheap project because he has the skill set. So that's kind of what he does in his retirement now. He wanted to get it, fix it up, ask me for help here and there, kind of make it a father-son project, if you will.
Cool.
And then when it was time for body and paint, kind of hand me the keys and say, here you go. So it didn't turn out that way because all the ones that he was finding in the price range that he wanted to spend on were just total, like they're garbage. So he found one that was a little more money. he said, hey, I can contribute X amount, you can contribute Y. Let's get this and let's do it. Cool. So it was kind of a unofficial welcome to the family project. So yeah, it's at their house right now in my father-in-law's shop, and it's painted, it's running, well, except for the fuel pump.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know anything about cars, but it's got a Fox body 85 Mustang motor in it, 302. So a little bit more pep in it. It's a BMW candy flake paint on it. I custom fitted some 07 GT seats, custom built a center console for it. So it's got some upgrades to it that I wanted to add that a lot of the purists are not happy that I would have done, but not their car, it's mine.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
I'm going to be driving it, not them.
We got to be happy with how the Jays are performing this year. That's pretty exciting. Can never get over that Yankee, Boston. They always taking the top of the division, then getting slaughtered early in the playoffs or just missing it. And then finally we get to take it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a grind though, right? It's like it's not over. Now is when serious baseball comes into play, right? And you have your sleeper teams that just come out of nowhere. So yeah, they finished first in the division, but the hard work's just starting.
Yeah. I was doing softball for a few years when I was living out in the East GTA for just a very, very short stint. I got back into softball and I was running the base pads and partially tore my meniscus in my right knee. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of shitty. And I remember going to work. I was a traveling salesman at the time, so I was driving all over the place, and I'd have to lift my leg to get it out of the car and hobble into my appointment, hobble back. We did some x-rays or took an MRI, and they're like, yeah, you don't need surgery, but I think running base pads, it's just that weird sport, right? Where it's like you get the weirdest injuries. And that ended up happening to me. So I shelved that sport, but big sports fan myself, play hockey in the winter, love golf in the summer. Yeah. Enjoying that a little bit more these days as I get older in age is playing golf. So
less impact on the body.
A little less impact on the body, and always fun to have a couple beers while you're out there. And
I was going to say less impact on the body, but a little more on the liver sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only been out once this year, so only one, 3 times in the last 2 years, I think. So it's just been something that I haven't had the opportunity to get out with.
Yeah, I was in the league for 6 years, and then COVID hit, and 2021 rolled around, and I think I played 1 or 2 rounds that year. And then the following year, I only played 4 or 5. Then I got into a league again because I knew I wanted to play more, and being in one forces you to play, right? And so it's been awesome. I got into a really fun league. The guys are beauties, number one, but it's not traditional golf. It's you have your A, B, C, D, and D flights. So you play for a bit into the season to see where you rank on how you're playing that year.
Shuffle
and
around.
Then you play in foursomes. So and you're all on the same team.
Okay.
And then every hole is a different game. So one game could be like a Scottish, and then it's the count. So you're either counting 3 scores, 2 scores, or 1 score. So Scottish means you take the best drive. Then everybody plays their own ball from there. And if it's a count 2, you take the best 2 scores on that hole.
Huh, interesting.
Right? And then all kinds of different games. Irish just take the second best. You do a 2x2-man scramble. So you need 2 balls in play, or you're going to have to take an extra drop. And then you're scrambling on each ball, and you have to count both of them. So, and it changes from the front 9 to the back 9. The games change all the time. They have point systems, and they got jean jackets this year for whoever wins the different flights. And
maybe in tuxedo.
It's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool what they do. They got us hats this year, and we're doing.
Of course, we got that.
So this year we're doing it up in Bon Air. They started at Jmmortgages Golf Course, and then they moved it to Horseshoe, and we were a mainstay there for a couple of years. Then they redid the course, so we had to find a new home, and they treat us very well up at Bon Air. Surprisingly, the drainage on that golf course is amazing. We've played there in some heavy rain and rain the day before, and we're not walking in any puddles or anything like that. So we're pretty fortunate to be up there.
Very nice.
All right, a little bit more of a serious question that we always ask on the show, because like I was saying before, right, life is never truly linear. It's we pick our path, right? We walk that path, and then sometimes life decides that it wants to throw things our way. And sometimes those are challenges. Sometimes they're heartaches. Sometimes they're tragedies. Some people experience these more than others. But I've always been impressed with human beings, right? Our ability to be able to overcome these challenges. It's a mindset, how we see the glass half full, and then moving forward from it, right? Evolution doesn't stop. The world still goes around and around. Time's not stopping to tick. So we have to kind of move forward with it. We don't really have a choice. So it's how do we look at these? Can we pull silver linings from them? Can we learn from them? How do we become better humans, even when it is something that might be tragic? But certainly life challenges, learn and grow from there. So have you ever experienced a hardship, life challenge, maybe you overcame, maybe it made you better, maybe it made you stronger, maybe you took some silver linings?
Of course, I think everyone has. And if you haven't, then you're very, very fortunate, because like you said, life just has its own course of action and its own things that it kind of throws at you. But growing up, I had a mother who was ill. She was diagnosed with cancer when I was very young. Wasn't supposed to have any other children after me. Ended up having my sister, but then being in it, and we're 8 years apart.
Okay.
So being in and out of the hospital a lot just made me have to grow up very fast because I had a young sister at home to take care of. So yeah, I didn't exactly have the traditional childhood, if you will, but it also led me to want to give my children as much of a childhood as they can. Right, let them be kids as long as they can. Let them make the messes as much as we can withstand. Because if you let them go wild, there's no stopping with them.
Right.
And then fast forwarding to my adult hood, if you will, after the wedding, my wife and I waited a little while to have children, and she ended up having 2 miscarriages before we had our daughter. So that kind of put a damper on things and delayed things, but she ended up finding out that she had thyroid cancer and stuff like that. So had to have that remediated, had to delay things, and then she had 2 miscarriages after that. One was actually at, I believe she was 12 weeks when she had the first one. So that was I still remember I was on the phone with a lender. She was in having a ultrasound, and I was on the phone with a lender about a deal in the waiting room, and she called, and I'm like, oh, she's probably just calling to see where I am. So I clicked over, put the lender on hold, clicked over, and she was crying, and she said they can't find the heartbeat. And that's one of those things that'll just always be there. But it makes you kind of appreciate, no matter how much of a little hellion our daughter is, kind of makes you appreciate her a little bit more.
For sure, 100%. We had I had the privilege of doing one of our expert series. We have a different arm of the podcast for clients who are experts with us, and they write educational content. And she's a postpartum psychotherapist and working with trauma and after you're having babies and the strain it puts on women and the whole bit. And man, did I ever learn a lot of stuff from having the podcast, reading the articles. It you never want to wish that on anybody. It really wreaks havoc on the mind, and really appreciate you being open and sharing that story with us.
Well, that's one thing that I am, is I'm an open book, right? Everything that has happened in my life has brought me to where I am, and the only way, like you can go through all these hardships and use it as a way to sit there and play the victim and woe is me kind of thing,
right?
Or you can use that as a stepping stone and a learning situation to do better and just make yourself, a better person.
Yeah, 100%. It goes back to the silver linings, right? Or you're saying your daughter's a little hellion, but you appreciate it more and not just dwell on that one thing, because you're able to try to take what you can from the other experiences, which is making you appreciate her more now. Even though obviously we don't wish anybody goes through something like that, but that's life, right?
Yeah, and we were fortunate enough that my wife's thyroid got under control, and we were able to. And then our son there's no issues with him. He just came out, and he's been pushing our limits ever since.
Yeah, I'm with somebody who had breast cancer, and 8 years strong now. She's good to go, but every year we gotta do the checkup, right? And it's just that time of year. We just got through it, so we're
Oh, yeah.
good again for another year. And it's just that time, right? And your mind likes to wander in certain ways. So you
Oh,
try
of
to do your
course.
best to not let it do that. But yeah, I can relate to that.
My mother-in-law actually had breast cancer, and while they were in talking to the surgeon, that's when we found out my wife had thyroid cancer.
Crazy.
So they were actually in the doctor's office, and my wife's phone rang, and she was like, "Oh, it's a doctor." So she picked it up, and they're like, "Yeah, your tests came back, and you have thyroid cancer. We need to remediate it right away."
So is that just like a regular testing that they're supposed to do so they caught it, or was that by fluke? Or
So she had a really good family doctor that she finally got in with, and that's who caught my mother-in-law's breast cancer and my wife's thyroid.
wow.
Because my wife had a lump here, and everyone just kept feeling it. And they did like blood work, and they're like, "Oh, it's fine, like whatever." And this doctor was like, "No, like you're going to a specialist, you're going to get tested or whatever." And it came back that that's what it was. So they did a whole thyroidectomy, did radioactive iodine, and now she has no thyroid, so she's on supplements. But yeah, she has to get her blood work taken every few months to make sure everything's in check. When she was trying to get pregnant, they had to adjust things, make sure it was in certain levels. We still think that it's because of her thyroid jumping so high and not being closely monitored when she got pregnant the first time. That's
Okay.
what led to it. But nobody has really come out and said. There's been hints towards it, but nobody's come out and said, like, yeah, because they're not going to throw that doctor under the bus. But it's just something that, we have to deal with, and we have been.
Man, there's so much that goes into fertility now that we're going through the motions. Like back in the day, like we were younger, but I don't ever remember, hearing what I'm hearing now. I guess when you're in it, you're just like anything else, you're hearing more about it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the ignorance of not being in it that you don't hear it, but I just feel like it's not like what it was back in the day. People are popping off, making babies left, right, and center. And now, every time I'm having a conversation with one, it's, I'm 3 miscarriages. I talked to someone the other day, like, yeah, we had 3 miscarriages before. Now we have 3. But yeah, she went through 3 miscarriages before she popped out her first one. And thankfully they were all early. But even at that, and you never want to go through that. But it's like, holy, you got to really make sure your health is in check. Like both partners go through the tests, go through all of the motions, and really try to protect yourself as much as you can before, you get into that. Right.
Yeah. And that was the thing before the radioactive iodine, because my wife is very much, she'll research everything. She wants to know exactly what we're signing up for and all that. So she's doing the research on this radioactive iodine because she had to stay in the hospital after taking it. Like they come in a hazmat suit with a box, and they put it down and say, "Don't open the box until I'm out of the room." And then she has to take it and like swallow it. Right. So she's doing all this research about it, and they're saying like, yeah, it could affect fertility. She was already worried about that for whatever reason. She had in her mind that she thought we were going to have issues. So we both went and got tested and all that before the radioactive iodine situation happened. And then after that, we had to wait. I think it was a year after she was cleared. And then so we waited that year, and then she got pregnant finally, and then it was baby was there, everything was moving forward, and then it wasn't. So it was hard on her. And I remember, this might be TMI, but I remember the doctor asking if she wanted to pass it naturally or if she wanted it taken out at the hospital. And she looked over at me and says, "What do you think? What do you want to do?" Like, that's just who she is. Like, she was in the moment knowing what she wanted to do, but she didn't answer until she knew, because she realized that I'm going through it as well. And she didn't want to just jump in without considering my feelings.
Yeah.
And I pretty much just looked at her and said, "Whatever you decide, it's like, you're the one going through it.
Yeah.
Like, I will deal with my emotions. I'm not going to make you sit there and pass it naturally for what?" Right. So that just showed even more. Like, I've been with my wife. We just celebrated 10 years married, and we were married on our 12-year anniversary of dating. So we've been together. Thank you. We've been together most of our lives. So there's not too much that I don't know about her, but then that day just kind of opened up my eyes a little bit more to like the kind of person she is and how she processes things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it sounds like you have a strong partnership there. That's really cool, man. All right, let's get back to the mortgage
All
side
right.
of things.
So on a happier note.
Yeah, a little happier note. Appreciate you opening up about that. Our listeners do as well too. It's always nice to get to know. Like, we have really good businesses in Simcoe County, but we also have amazing people who are behind those businesses, and it's what we love doing the show so much, is getting those stories behind those businesses. So, if there was one thing that you wish our listeners knew about your business, what would that one thing be?
About mine personally, or mortgages in general?
Yours.
I'm not like every other person out there. I'm not your typical mortgage broker. The way I'm talking to you right now is the way I talk to every client. I've gotten off the phone before and my wife's overheard some of the conversation because she's walked in the room or whatever, and I'll hang up and she'll be like, "Oh, who's that?" Thinking it's a friend. And I'll tell her, "Oh, just a client, blah, blah, blah." She's like, "That was a client?" Right? So like, that's just, I am who I am. I don't put on a front. I don't put on, if I do presentations at a room full of realtors, I don't put on a suit and tie and polish my shoes. I'll show up in jeans and a shirt like I'm wearing. I believe in transparency and honesty, and also getting you where you need to go the simplest way. That's kind of where I stand. I did have a nickname in high school given by my shop teacher, which was Water. And I thought back then, when you're in high school, you think my teacher's calling me Water. And like, well, what's he trying to do? Like, why is he making fun of me? Later on in life, reflecting on that, I realized that it's not necessarily an insult, because his mentality behind that and his reasoning was, I will look for the path of least resistance.
Nice.
Right. So at the time, I'm like, I'm thinking like, as a hot-headed high school kid, thinking like, what's this problem? Like, why is he being an asshole? But meanwhile, he kind of looked at it. Now I look back and it's like, Mr. Vondres,
Shout out.
you're absolutely right.
Nice.
He called it as he saw it, and it took me probably 20 years to figure out what he was getting at. But it's like, yeah, Water. I'll take the path of least resistance. Why not? Why make it more difficult than it has to be?
Well, Justin, that was a phenomenal conversation. Getting an opportunity to get to know another great business and business owner in our local market. Great conversation. Definitely know there are going to be some people that are interested, that want to reach out, learn a little bit more about you, the business, or maybe in need of some assistance with your specialty. And so for those who are, what would be one of the best ways they can go ahead and reach you?
I'm available anyway. Social media at Jmmortgages is all my handles, or my cell phone. I'm available by text is usually the fastest, or a phone call.
Beautiful, man. Well, awesome stuff. Super happy to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on, and looking forward to seeing you out there.
Likewise, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpwithjeffandshawn.com. That's gnpwithjeffandshawn.com.